Okay, in my last segment, I tried to age this big tin mail holder with vinegar. It didn't work. I tried to age it with Lysol toilet bowl cleaner and it did nothing but leave white toothpastey like streaks, even though I rinsed it and tried to wipe it off. It's something, I don't know what it is about this metal. It's just, can't get it to age the way I want to. It is so hot outside, so I am working in my garage. So I'm going to chalk paint it today. And I'm gonna try something different other than Annie Sloan's. Everybody does Annie Sloan's chalk paint, but it's so expensive. And I did have some Annie Sloan, but our painters decided to use it to mix paint to give us samples when we were building the house. They didn't realize that that's expensive paint. They dumped my entire container of Annie Sloan into some gray to lighten up the gray. That was an expensive little sample. So I'm trying some different brands. So let me show you what I'm gonna be using. Okay, I've decided since my walls are actually called repose gray in my house, which is what they call it grayish. It's part beige, part gray. So it would be nice if I did this with gray and then did a white overcoat and then sanded it, but it wouldn't match my walls because my walls are grayish. So I picked a color that is almost pretty darn close, just a shade darker than my walls. And the brand is DecoArt Americana Decor Chalky Finish. So I'm gonna try this one. This one ran $8.99, I believe, a tub. This little tub was, you know, $8.99. But the color is primitive. Primitive. It says primitive, it's primitive. Oh, that's because it's in a different language. Sorry. In the English one, it is primitive. So it's called primitive, and that's the color. I'm gonna be doing that as a base coat. And then I'm gonna water this down a little bit. And I'm gonna put a light white coat over it and then just kind of ding it up. Take some sandpaper and rough it up in certain places so that the tan shows through. But this is called Simply White. And this I'm using another brand, ArtMinds. Now, this was a lot cheaper. Well, I wouldn't say a lot cheaper. It was only $6.99 for this tub. Same size tubs, both chalk paints. The DecoArt was $8.99 and this ArtMinds was only $6.99. And then I'm also gonna be using some Martha Stewart's projects because I'm gonna be doing a lot of chalk painting in the next 3 days because I bought a cabinet for $7.50 I'm gonna do, and I bought some mason jars, so I'm gonna have fun with chalk paint. So I bought different brands to compare them for you guys. And I even bought some plaster Paris to make my own chalk paint. You can see how hot it is, I'm starting to sweat. To make my own chalk paint. So I'm gonna be doing some comparisons in the next coming up video. So first, I'm gonna be using this as the first coat. Okay, now I didn't spend the mega bucks on getting the Annie Sloan chalk paint brush, but I did get this one from Craftsmart. This is all from Michael's Craft Store. This is Craftsmart. This is the waxing brush, which you can also use for the chalk paint. And this was only $14.99. Now the Martha Stewart one that looks just like it, but it comes to a domed end a little bit, was $24.99. So I'm trying to get by with spending as little money as possible. So I saved $10 by buying this brand, Craftsmart, made in China, it says China on there. By buying this one, I saved 10 bucks. From the Martha Stewart. And then I bought a little tiny one because of these little drawers that are on here, or these little buckets or whatever you call it, to be able to get down in there. So I got this, and this was $5.99. So save some money on the brushes. Now I do have a little bucket close by and I'll put water in it. As soon as I get done painting completely, I will put these brushes in water so that I can clean them because I'll be needing them for the next color. These brushes are expensive, so I'm gonna wash them after every use because I want these to last for my next 3 projects. So, okay, let's get started. Okay, now I've already gone through, I took an old t-shirt and I wiped off any of the residue. You can still see that white is gonna continue to show up on there from the Lysol. I've already used water, I wiped it down, and but it still has that white coat on it. I could sand it, but that's just extra work, and you don't need to do that with chalk paint. So I took a t-shirt and just wiped it down first. I'm gonna open my primitive color. I'm nervous, I've only chalk painted once, and that was an old antique tea cart, and it was several years ago. Okay, so I've got a little bit of the paint on my brush, and I'm just gonna put it on. And the nice thing about this is that you don't have to, I'm gonna try to scoot you forward so you can see it better. Okay, that's better. So the nice thing about the chalk paint, you can just throw it on messy. You don't have to worry about, you know, seeing the metal through it, you know, however you want to put it on. I already shook this up before I used it. So I'm just dabbing my brush in there. I would pour it into another jar, but I'm not gonna be using that much paint, so I didn't wanna mess with having another jar out here. So I'm just putting this primitive paint. Now it's a brand new brush and it's gonna shed. So make sure you get the hairs out if you get hairs in your paint. Just slapping it on. And thin, because you want it to dry, you know, fairly quickly. You don't want to have to worry about areas not drying. So put it on nice and thin. We can put another coat on of this color if we need to, but put it on thin. Any place that I can't reach with my big brush, I'll come back afterwards and do my little brush. Okay, I'm gonna pick up my little brush and get inside these buckets. You don't need very much paint. Okay, so now I put my first coat on, got inside each drawer with the little brush. I'm gonna let it sit for about 30 minutes to make sure it's completely dry. What I did with the big brush is already dry, but I need to make sure inside the drawers are dry. And it is so humid here. Let me show you. I don't know if you can see the water dripping off of me. It is so humid here today that this is just gonna take a little bit longer to dry just because, I mean, my hair is soaking wet. I mean, you look at this. I'm dying of heat. This isn't hot flashes either. So I have to make sure the first coat completely dries before I can put another coat on it. So like I said, I'm gonna wait about 30 minutes. My stuff I did with the big brush is already dry. I just now have to wait for my little brush stuff to dry, and then I'm gonna put a second coat on it, see how it looks. And then once that dries, I'm gonna put the white on top, and then I'm gonna sand it up, and let's see how it looks. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and put the second coat on, same as the first, and then I'll come back when I'm ready to put on my third coat, which is the white, the Simply White. So, okay, I'll be back. Okay, so I got 2 coats of the cream on, and it actually looks pretty darn good this way, but I wanna have some fun. Let me show you. So it actually blends right into the wall, but it looks good this way, but it's not shabby chic. It's not farmhouse. So now I'm going to be adding on a coat of white, and then I'm gonna sand it to show a little bit of metal through and a little bit of the cream through. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started, and let's start painting the white. Okay, so now it's time to do the white coat. Now this is the ArtMinds, and it's the Simply White. And I'm using the smaller brush because it just seemed to work easier. I already started there, but forgot didn't hit record. You just put a thin layer for this top coat. I'm just putting it on thin so it's easier to sand off. I did wash my brush. It's still a little bit damp from the last time, but that's okay. Sometimes people, after looking on Pinterest, sometimes people add water to the paint for the top coat so that it's thinner and easier to sand off. I'm just putting a thin coat on it and my brush is wet, so that has a little bit of water in that too. So it puts it on a little bit thinner. So I'm just gonna paint everything white now. Okay, so I have all the white painted, and it looks, even this looks good. So the beige look good, the white looks good, but I did 2 coats of the white, and I started the sanding. Now some people wax before they sand. I don't want to wax before I sand because the amount of paint dust that I'm gonna have when I'm sanding will get stuck in the wax, and then it's harder to clean. So I'm gonna wax after I sand. But I did do one of the drawers, don't want to hit anything. And you can see I distressed anywhere there's a bump, I distressed, and you can kind of see it. You can get some beige through here. I'm just starting to sand. I'm going to show you how to do it. Down here I got some beige coming through. So I'm going to start sanding and let you see how it goes. So far it's been a fun project. So let's start sanding. Okay, I had to put my hair up because you saw earlier it was so hot that my hair was just soaking wet. So my hair is up now and it's looking crappy, but that's okay. I'm using 220 grit sandpaper. You want to use fine sandpaper, and since I'm working on metal, I don't want a whole bunch of paint to come off. So I am using a 220 grit. I know you can use anything from 100 on up. The higher the number, the more fine and gentle the sandpaper is. So I'm using 220 grit, so let's get started. Okay, I'm just gonna show you on one drawer. Anywhere there's a bump out in a corner, that's where you wanna sand, because that's where normal wear and tear will happen. So I have my sandpaper folded in half, and I'm just gonna rub it on all the corners where any wear and tear would happen. So you can kind of see any bump. There's a bump on the other side. And the harder you push, like right there, I got a chunk taken off because I pushed too hard. So just go back gently, back and forth until you get the paint to be removed. And I'm going down to bare metal on this part of this, the distressing. I'm going down to bare metal. And then I'll go along the edges. Using a little more force with this because it doesn't come off as easy. Some parts I want thicker than others. I'll zoom in so you'll be able to see it better in a minute. You can see all that dust. See, you wouldn't want that in your wax. Okay, getting the corners. Corners get dinged up the most, so I want the most paint taken off in the corners. And then I'm gonna just sand a little bit off of the white to get some beige showing through. You can see the beige right there. So you can see the beige. Let me see. So you can see the beige kind of coming through right here. It's just gonna be subtle. The 2 coats wasn't probably completely necessary except for the fact that I am working with metal. I didn't want the shiny tin to show through too much when I sanded. So I'd rather have the beige showing through. I don't want it to look too nice and neat. So I got some beige coming through here, and then all that metal. At the bottom, distress a little bit more. Okay, so that's kind of how I want it. I'm going to get some on the sides, these little bolts on the side, and then the trim around the edge. You see it better on the side. So I'm going to get this trim right here. You know that's going to get beat up. So, my Starbucks is getting covered in paint. These bolts. Rough up a little bit on a little stripe on the side. Just a couple little spots. I'll show you what I did to the side. So you can see a little stripe here, and then roughing up of the edges. And then the bolts. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna do this distressing to the whole thing. Get a little bit here in the center. Makes it seem like sandpaper's getting a little worn down. Mail would have been something sitting in here. I'm just picturing that it would kind of rough it up a little bit. So that's all there is to it. Okay, here we go. Now after I get done sanding this, you can see all my distressing that's happening here. When I get all done and I have it the way I like it, I'm gonna take my t-shirt, a white t-shirt, a lint-free rag, and I'm gonna dust it off because there's gonna be a lot of like paint dust all over this and inside. And then I will be back and we will do the waxing. Okay, I'm back and I distressed it. It is actually outside. I'm going to show you in just a second, but I wanted to tell you what I did next after I distressed it. And my hair is looking horrible. It was so hot today. I was going to use the ArtMinds clear wax, and I was going to do clear wax on it, but it didn't. What I was nervous about is since I have the white on the outside and I don't want it to yellow because all the trim in my house is bright white, and I have the shiplap in my kitchen that is the whitewashed, I can't take the risk of it yellowing. And this clear wax, even though it dries clear, it goes on yellow. And I was so nervous to use it. So this is what I actually used. I decided to take a chance with this, and I'm glad I did. It went on so easy, especially with all the little cubbies. Getting a paintbrush in there and the wax and then buffing it out would have been impossible. So I got this Krylon UV resistant clear acrylic coating. It protects against UV light and rays, which I don't have to worry about that, it's inside, but it's non-yellowing and permanent. See, with the clear wax, you have to update that every 6 months. You have to put a new coat of wax on, wax off, you know, you buff it off. But I didn't want, it's gonna be hanging on the wall and I'm gonna screw it into the wall, and so I don't want to have to take it down to re-wax it. So I'm taking a chance with this, and I just sprayed it on and it went on so easy, and it didn't discolor it. It dried very quick. But once again, it's the Krylon UV clear acrylic coating. So that's what I put on it. So let me go and show you how it looks. Okay, you're gonna hear a lot of wind. It is really windy out here. And since this is a spray, I had to do it way away from the house because, you know, from my last vlog, y'all saw that my husband's actually got stain sprayed on his truck from a sprayer, so I have to be far away from the house. So I sprayed it, but this is how it turned out. I roughed it up, and areas like this, I just took my fingernail and scratched the paint off. The beige doesn't really show through. There is some areas, like right there, where the beige shows through, but not much. I probably could have just skipped that step of painting the beige first and just painted it white. But you can see I distressed it everywhere. And I love how it turned out. Let me pan out, oops. Let me pan out so you can see the whole thing. So I just sprayed one coat of this acrylic spray, and I think it looks really good. So I'm gonna let it dry overnight, and then my husband's gonna hang it tomorrow, and I'll take pictures of it. But so you can see I distressed it, and all the nuts and bolts got scratched, and I roughed it up kind of in areas where mail would have been, or something might have been in the basket, and kind of scratched things up. And oops, look at that, oh my god, big red spider. No, that ain't good. But I like how it turned out. I can't wait to show you the picture of it actually on the wall. So you can see how I distressed, made it kind of look kind of chippy. I went a little overboard with the distressing, but I made sure to, like where the screws go in, I distressed it there as if, you know, taking it on and off the wall. You know, the screw scratched it. But I love how it turned out. But I probably could have saved this step of putting the beige underneath, because when I sanded, the beige doesn't really show up. So, okay, the next thing you'll see is it on the wall. I hope you like the pictures, and once again, Amy with Fashion Toppings. Until next time, you have a great day.